Welcome to our class where you will be learning exciting recipes and more about healthy eating with our guest speaker, Mr. Sam Benavides. Okay, let's start with a word of prayer and then we will proceed with the introduction. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the opportunity to come and learn more on how to eat and nourish our bodies so that we can bring honor and glory to your name. I pray that you can be with those that are still on the road, be especially with Sam as well. Guide him as he presents the knowledge that he has so that we can improve our eating styles and be healthy. We ask also to be with the hands that prepared the samples and with everybody that's here, Lord, that you can bless them as well. We ask these things in the name of, we want to also ask in a special way for Pastor Rodney's mom, Carol, as she is in the ICU. And we ask that your Holy Spirit and your power will be upon her according to your will, that you will give the physicians good judgment and wisdom as they make decisions for her health. Be with her husband and be with Pastor Rodney and his family as well. We ask for your comfort and your presence in their lives, that they will hold on to you regardless of the outcome. We ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, so today we are very excited to bring to you Mr. Sam Benavides. I first met Mr. Benavides many years ago. I think it was like around 2010 or something, when the CHIP program was very much being facilitated and promoted by Dr. Hans Deal. And Mr. Benavides would come to our physician meetings and present to us so that we could help our patients make better choices by enrolling in the CHIP program. So let me tell you a little bit more about him, his actual bio. Sorry, my phone keeps shutting down. So Sam's professional career as a health educator and coach and wellness educator began in 2010 when he and his wife Ashley started a fitness business. In the time since, Sam has facilitated the disease prevention program known as the Complete Health Improvement Program, which is CHIP. Developed and has developed a successful weight loss program, managed a vegan restaurant, and authored a book. Today, Sam keeps busy being a husband and a father to 3 beautiful daughters and is working on expanding the restaurant concept known as the Living Root Cellar, or Cafe, sorry. To bring the message of health to a world that is hungry for change. So let's welcome Mr. Benavides. Thank you so much for coming.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited to present the topic with you today. I want to ask a question since we're in the holiday season. Excuse me. How many of you celebrated Thanksgiving? Great. And are you still in that celebratory mode? Or are you ready for the new year already? I'm hoping that maybe you're still in that mode and maybe you have plans for another celebratory feast. Feasting is just one of human nature's greatest opportunities for fellowship, is it not? When we celebrate food with family and friends, it makes memories. And that's what we treasure about feasting and about preparing these meals. And yet, there's something not right with our world. And I want to talk to you a little bit about healthy recipes and how to prepare healthy meals during the holidays. But I want to kind of bring to light some of the attitudes in our culture Because if we are called to be the salt and the light, we need to be equipped, we need to be ready to be able to address these issues that maybe we don't really know are happening around us. So has anyone ever encountered someone that has the attitude that, well, if you're not just going to throw caution to the wind, then what's the point of celebrating? Has anyone ever encountered that attitude? Like if we're going to go out to dinner, then why not just splurge? Right? I mean, I think I'm guilty of that for sure. But I want to ask these questions that are key. How many of you believe in following tradition when we celebrate? Okay? How many of you believe we should be practicing temperance when we celebrate? Okay, a few more. How many of you think we can do both? Okay, great. Well, I'm not going to give you the answer because I want you to figure it out. I'm going to present some truths. This presentation will I'll have two parts to it. The first part is where I'm going to reveal to you the current state of affairs in our world and specifically in our country as it relates to health and wellness, as it relates to how people have a relationship with food. One of the things that I learned while I was running the restaurant called the Living Root Cellar, which we now changed to the Living Root Cafe, is that in general, restaurants don't sell food. And that may sound a little counterintuitive, but being in that industry firsthand, I realized that, restaurants sell ambiance, convenience, and flavor sensations. And so it occurred to me that if there was a restaurant that was in the business of selling food for its nutritional profile, for its nutritional value, what would that look like? And that was our mission, and still is our mission. So the first part of this presentation is exposing some of the deceptions in our world that cause us to make some choices that are not so ideal when it comes to food and eating and dining out. And so at the end of the presentation, we're going to do more of a hands-on class type of engagement where I'm going to give you some tools and some strategies that you can take and begin making those changes at home. So it is my hope that when this class is over, that you'll be no longer confused about what is truth, about what is healthy, that you will gain a new perspective on how to relate to food, and that you will be empowered to make wise choices. So the first question is, does it matter? Does it matter to be wise about the food choices that we make? It does, right? Especially if you have children or grandchildren. My wife and I, we have 3 girls, and they're watching and they're learning. And so it absolutely does matter how we conduct ourselves, what food choices we make. Because it may not be someone in your family, but it may be a coworker or someone that has noticed something different about you, and they just haven't had the courage to ask. So it does matter. But I want to tell you why it matters. In case you haven't heard, there is a global disease crisis in our world. It's absolutely staggering. If you study the data and if you research the level to which our country has degraded into just unprecedented levels of chronic disease. Take, for example, just in since 1980, chronic disease rates, we're talking about heart disease, cancer, diabetes, rates of these chronic diseases have more than doubled just since 1980. So think about that. When it comes to heart disease, and this is a staggering statistic, did you know that someone dies from preventable heart disease in this country every 34 seconds? Think about that. Every 34 seconds. If this was an airline industry, it'd be out of business, right? Because we're talking about millions of people that die every single year of preventable heart disease. And despite the fact that we are the most technologically advanced nation in the world, we have the greatest doctors, the greatest science, we rank last in health outcomes as compared to other industrialized nations. Think about that. Last. We spend more money and we get poorer outcomes from the effort that we put into health, what we call health care. Now, there's another interesting statistic. Since 1980, quick service restaurants have jumped by 400%. And you see it everywhere. You can't go to any community without fast food restaurants just everywhere. Do you think there's a correlation? Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a firm believer, not just from these statistics, but because I've lived it, that restaurants are not in the business to sell nourishing food. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. And so what I want you to see in this slide is that what we put in our bodies, okay, is a $4.9 trillion industry. This is the healthcare industry. $4.9 trillion. That's a staggering number. The restaurant and food and packaged food industry is $2.6 trillion. For contrast, this is how much we spend on clothes. So the clothing industry is a fraction of the fast food, packaged food industry, and the healthcare industry combined. It's a fraction. You think there's maybe a spiritual correlation here? The spiritual ramifications? Do you think that there's maybe an attack on our health and our bodies? Absolutely. So I'm going to play a little game because the question becomes, how is it that these industries grow to be so large? So I know there's quite a few that are baby boomers. And so we're going to do a little game here, a little test, just to see, just to kind of make my point. I'm going to make a statement, and this is commercial propaganda. And I want you to see if you can finish it. Okay, here we go. My bologna has a first name. Where is it? OACAR. Okay, good one. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't. And finish it. Mounds has nut. Mounds don't. Very good. All right, how about this one? Plop, flop, fizz, fizz. The best part of waking up? And we don't drink coffee, so go figure that. Here's the last one. Silly rabbit. Is there any doubt in your mind that corporations do this on purpose, intentionally? There should be no doubt in your mind that we have been conditioned, right, without our knowledge. And so the question is, why are we so gullible? When I was in high school, I attended a boarding academy, and they required that you work to help pay for your tuition. So they put me to work in the strawberry fields on gopher patrol. Okay? Well, here's an interesting thing that I learned about gopher traps and gopher behavior. So when you see a fresh mound of dirt, all right, you dig it up to expose the hole, you stick the trap in there, and you put a little bait, and then you walk away. Well, the gopher intuitively senses that his has been disturbed, so he comes back and starts pushing the dirt out, right? Why doesn't he see the trap? Well, you may not know this, but gophers have very poor eyesight. Their sense of sound and movement, they're very sensitive to movement, ground movement, but their eyesight is very, very poor. So the trap is in plain sight. And that is what's happening to us without our knowledge. We are being captured by corporate interests in staggering ways, in surprising ways. And so the question is, why? Why is this? Let's go back to the beginning. We all know the story of Eve in the Garden of Eden, but I want to unpack this a little bit to help you understand and gain some insight. So, you remember the story. The serpent starts engaging with Eve and asks this question, right? Is it true that God said you couldn't eat from all the trees in the garden? Okay, well, there's clue number one. God didn't say that. But the serpent is presenting himself, the devil through the serpent, as a credible voice. Okay, so that's tip number one. The serpent was more crafty than all the other animals. That made it even more credible. And then he twists the truth. Eve comes back and says, no, God didn't say that. He said we could eat from all the trees except for one. Because if we eat from that, we will die. In fact, he said, don't even touch it. So she's really wanting to make her point with the serpent because that's what she believed. And so what does the serpent say? No, you shall not surely die. And he gives his best pitch. So, what happens after that? Eve starts to reason. She goes to the tree, and there's 3 facts that are suddenly apparent to her that were not apparent before, prior to the deception. The first fact is what? The fruit was good for food. Okay, that was probably a fact. We don't know. Second, it was pleasing to the eye. And she would know this because she knew all the other fruits in the garden. And number 3, it was desirable to gain wisdom. Now, something that we know about this deception is that it was partially true. The serpent twisted the truth to deceive her. And we're going to talk about that some more. But I want to dive a little bit more into this idea of deception and how, because we're all fallen, we are all sinners. We don't have the benefit of being innocent and pure as Eve did. So we don't have that understanding or relationship. But in Matthew 6, 22 to 23, this is a very deep concept that I'm still thinking about. But it says this: the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? This is pretty deep, because the first question that comes to mind is, how can something that is light be dark? Because that's what it says. If then the light within you is darkness, how does that happen? It's a mystery, isn't it? Let's get into it a little bit more. Well, I wish I could go into a whole other study on this, but we know from John 3:19 and 20, when Christ was talking to Nicodemus, that he gave the verdict. What was the verdict? The light came into the world, but the world rejected. Why? Because they loved darkness. Because the light exposed their evil deeds. So we are naturally drawn to the darkness. So that's just our human nature. On top of that, there's a prince of darkness that makes it even harder for us to understand the truth and to receive the light. So when we're talking about deceptions, because this is how I understand this verse to mean, is that light that is dark are lies that are presented as truth, but we take them in, and the effect is that it is dark. And again, that's a topic for a whole other class. So now the question is, what happens when people in power are deceived? We have a few examples in history that help us to see that. The first example is the Roman Catholic Church. The gospel message was captured by the Roman Catholic Church, and they twisted the gospel, and they started selling preemptive grace. Right? For 1,260 years, they had power and control because they were selling preemptive grace. The second example, which is applicable for us today, is that scientific truth has been captured by secular science. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, let's talk about creation versus evolution. How does secular science pitch that evolution is superior to creation? Well, they do this. They believe that the present, things that they find in the ground, is key to the past. And that's how they come up with this theory of evolution. They find these bones and they come up with this idea the earth is millions of years old. In contrast, Scripture gives us the past that is key to our present and our future. So this is one of the ways in which we are deceived, is that something that is relevant, seems to be relevant today, okay, but has an ulterior motive to demystify the mysteries of God. Because the problem with the flood is that it is the key to our understanding of our world today. And what is that? We live in a sinful world. And so the story of the flood and the story of creation is a threat to the secular scientific narrative of evolution. Why? Because it points to God's judgment. And that's uncomfortable for secular science. They want to be rid of any kind of accountability that we have. So these messages are very subtle. And the last example is the example of preemptive healing. Y'all remember the pandemic? It was a very difficult time for many people. It was tragic and sad. And what was the message? Preemptive healing. And yet the Bible is clear that only God has the power to heal. And this lie has infiltrated every aspect of our society, that there is preemptive healing. What does that mean? It means that you can live the way you want, and there's just a pill for every ill. You don't have to be accountable to your actions, because secular science has a solution. So in the context of the corporate capture, they create the problem, and then they offer the solution, and they make millions of dollars doing that. That's their strategy. And we need to rise above that. We need to see through that and not be deceived and captured by the propaganda that there is such a thing as preemptive healing. No. We live in a world where God's laws govern. The law of sowing and reaping is a divine law. And anything to the contrary is a lie. So I did a little bit of research. We've all heard this verse in Psalms where David is saying how we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay? That's a real popular verse. So in the Hebrew text, fearfully is divinely. Divinely. So we're divinely made. And wonderfully, in the Hebrew text, is miraculously. So we have no control over how we were created. We can damage our DNA, but only God has the power to heal. And so this truth is a threat to the secular science narrative that we don't need God, that there's all these solutions in medical science. In fact, it almost seems as though their motto, their aim, is to prove God unscientific. Okay, so it's an idol worship issue. So the question is then, okay, what is truth? Is science truth? It is. Can you believe in truth without faith? Can you believe in science without faith? Jesus said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so if Jesus is the truth, we need faith to believe in Jesus. Do we not? And so it goes without saying that if God created all of science, then we need faith to believe in true science. And so I'm going to go into that a little bit so that you kind of understand. In Genesis 1:1 it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That's it. All of science is wrapped up in that one sentence. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's everything, right? It's universal. So all of science is bundled into that. But as it relates to planet Earth, here are the basic laws that govern life on planet Earth that have God's signature. And it works like this. With respect to gravity, we know that there's no source of weightlessness. There's just the absence of gravity. We escape gravity, the force of gravity, but nothing produces weightlessness. Does that make sense? The next one. There is no source of darkness. There's simply the absence of light. Nothing produces darkness. Now, a tree will cause a shadow, but the tree didn't produce the shadow. Are you following? So darkness, the shadow, has no say. There's no source of cold. There's merely the absence of heat. There's no source of silence. There's simply the absence of sound or music. Nothing produces silence, but something produces music. This is all divinely created. And in the spiritual realm, it works the same way. There's no source of hate. There's merely the absence of love, because love and hate cannot coexist. And in 1 John 4:18, it clearly states, there is no fear in love. I mean, yes, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. So if I was to apply this truth to all of these laws, they reveal the same pattern, and that is this. Darkness has no choice but to submit to the power of light. Silence has no choice but to submit to sound or music. Cold has no choice but to submit to heat, right? And so when it comes to our bodies, disease has no choice but to submit to the power of health in our bodies. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So why is this relevant? Well, because we live in a world where good is bad and bad is good. It's just upside down. Our slang, everything about our culture is just promoting, pushing, if something is good, well, no, it's bad. Well, if something is bad, no, it must be good. And it's just backwards. And it's very confusing. And so when it comes to health, secular science says health is the absence of disease. Now, it sounds benign, but it's really not. It's a deception. Why? Because of the laws that we just listed. Because if we were to believe that statement, that health is the absence of disease, it implies that disease has power over our health. And that's where they build their foundation for preemptive healing. Because they create the problem, the disease, and then they have a solution. And it's very subtle. And we're all victim to it. And if we don't understand that God is sovereign over our bodies, that God is the one who heals, then our faith has an opportunity to grow. And we can begin to make better choices. For those of you that are students of Ellen White, she says it this way. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So by this, we can begin to then question the very diseases that we have been so indoctrinated and get a glimpse into God's miraculous healing power. Let me give you an example. Inflammation. When you cut yourself, what happens? You bleed, okay? The body immediately responds with something called angiogenesis. That's the production of capillaries to the wound. That's what makes the wound red and sensitive to the touch. Okay? Inflammation is not a disease. It is a healing mechanism. Do we all agree? It is a healing. If you start scratching the scab, you interrupt that process, and the body has to go back to healing mode. But once the scar is healed, those capillaries subside, and now you don't have that sensitivity. So if inflammation is a healing mechanism on the outside, which we know very well, why is it not a healing mechanism on the inside? Why do they have names like arthritis and everything itis, right? If inflammation is a healing mechanism on the outside, God doesn't create contradictions. We just don't fully understand them. And this is one of those areas. We have been conditioned to believe that when there's inflammation in the body, it's a disease. But by this truth, it is not. The body knows what it's doing because God created it to heal. And we know that to be a very powerful truth. So this is a little unsettling, I understand. But I'm going somewhere with this, so hang with me. Here's another one. Osteoporosis. Do you know that the body is wired to maintain a constant pH level in the blood of between 7.3 to 7.4 on the acid-alkaline scale? It's very similar to how the body is wired to maintain a constant temperature. What's the constant temperature that the body maintains? 98.6, right? Okay, we all know that. Similarly, the body is designed to maintain a neutral pH of between 7.3 and 7.4 on the acid-alkaline scale. But the problem comes in when we begin to consume acid-forming foods such that the body has no choice but begin to leach calcium out of the bones. And that's the condition of our world. We consume ill-nourishing, acid-forming foods year after year after year after year after year. There's no cure for osteoporosis, they say. But can you reverse it? Maybe. It requires faith, doesn't it? But this is a glimpse into the truth around the mysteries, the wonderfulness of how God created our bodies. And yet we are at war with ourselves because we've been conditioned to this is, you have this diagnosis and that diagnosis. And I'm not speaking ill of any medical professionals. I have a great respect for doctors and nurses and medical professionals because they go in wanting to help patients heal, yet they're given only one tool to do it. So this puts more responsibility on us to think about what are the things in our lives that are causing harm, that are causing injury inside and out, and then start making changes. Here's my favorite. One of my favorite verses is in Proverbs 3. And we all know this, right? Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. When I was preparing for a class like this, that word bones suddenly just jumped off the page, and I wondered what happens in the bones that is so significant that Solomon put it in this verse. So what happens in the bones is something called hematopoiesis. That's where the blood cells are generated. Now, do you think this is scientific? Absolutely. This should validate the truth that God is sovereign over all science. We now have the technology to be able to validate the truth of this verse. So the question is, what do we do with it? Where do we go from here? So again, I hope no one is taking this as a criticism to medical professionals, because they are the brightest of the bright in our culture. But they're not taught this. Very few medical schools offer nutrition courses, much less any kind of scriptural science to validate that. So I'm sharing these truths because it's really my hope and my desire that this will strengthen your faith in Christ and that He is sovereign over our bodies. And all we need to do is begin to relinquish what control we think we have and begin to put more faith in His truths. And this is a daunting task. I've been teaching these classes for a long time, and it is daunting. We are facing a giant. So I want to give you some tips, a strategy. How do we face this giant? How do we defy the status quo? I'm going to give you 4 ways. Hopefully we'll go through these quickly. This is what I call an engagement strategy. It's my hope that when you leave here, you will have some of these principles, some of these truths that you can then put into practice to begin to start thinking about what are the things in my life, in my habits, that I need to change because I have been deceived by the corporate interests. So I've given this acronym DEFY so that you can remember these things. So let's go with the first one. Discern. What does that mean? Tell the difference, right? You can distinguish between right and wrong, between good and bad. And this is especially important when it comes to the deceptions of our world. Here's an example. Which is the real bill? Can you tell the difference? I ran a restaurant, and I had a few times when a $100 bill came across our cash register, and I took it to the bank, and sorry, I couldn't tell. But did you know that federal agents are trained to spot the counterfeit bills? How are they taught? How are they trained? They are never shown the counterfeit bill. When they begin their training to detect, to spot counterfeit bills, they are only shown the authentic original so that when the counterfeit comes across their desk, they could spot it. And that's what we need to do with some of the issues in our life, in our habits, that we're not even aware that we're being deceived. So I'm going to give you an example that I use in my weight loss program. These are 4 scams of the weight loss industry. The first scam is this message that says, "You're too heavy." Okay, it's partially true, but it's not the whole truth. Why? Because it's not about excess weight. It's about excess fat. Because you can be thin and metabolically obese. In other words, the ratio of fat to lean tissue is unnatural and unhealthy, and the scale is not going to tell you. So you're living a lie. I've seen this with marathon runners. They eat junk, and then they burn it off. But if they were to get a body fat scan, it would reveal that they have a disproportionate level of fat to lean tissue. The second scam is, well, you just eat too many calories. Partially true, right? But here's the thing. The whole truth is this. It's not about excess calories. It's about insufficient nutrition. Why? Because if all you did was consume whole plant foods, the kind that you have to chew and chew, it would be virtually impossible to overeat calorically. Your satiety system is going to work in your favor because it takes time for the signal to reach from your stomach to your brain. The third scam, you eat junk food. The second one is you eat too many calories. The third one is you eat junk food. Okay. This one is probably more true than not. But weight loss programs that pitch this are missing a very key detail. It's not that we eat junk food, because we all do. I mean, how can we not, right? So it's not about eating junk food. It's about why we eat it. And why do we eat it? Anybody? Because we're addicted. Absolutely. That's absolutely right. What's that potato chip commercial? Bitch can eat one, right? Okay. We are indoctrinated, and we don't even know it. Right? So this is where it gets into a spiritual issue, which is why most weight loss programs don't even address it. They're not equipped. They don't even know where to go. The fourth one, and this is one that I deal with all the time. You're just too inactive. You don't get enough exercise. Okay, partially true. But we have been conditioned to believe that exercise is essential for weight loss. And it's not, because it's not about insufficient exercise. It's about infrequent detoxification. Because when we are active, physically active, okay, we begin to stimulate the lymph system to help us detoxify every day. This is why we need to move every day. So you can exercise, and we would see this in our boot camps. People would come in and, I want to lose weight. Okay, so they work out really hard, 3 days, 4 days a week, right? And they lose the weight, and 4 weeks later, they gain it back because they didn't detoxify. So when you're exercising, don't exercise for the sake of achieving something that's just artificial. Think about you cooperating with your body's lymphatic system to be able to support and promote that detoxification. All right, so that's discern. And here's a point that I want to make. I think I missed a slide. So same weight, okay, different body composition. You seen that? All right. The second strategy is to endure. This is hard. When we first started our weight loss program, I studied other weight loss programs to figure out, well, what do they do? And what I found is that every weight loss program out there, they promote their program the same way. Fast and easy weight loss. And you don't have to give up your favorite foods. Right? How's that for a pitch? Yeah, sign me up. So it's It's about the nature of the scam. And so when we pitched our weight loss program, we pitched it completely different. We would give these little presentations, and we would say, this is the hardest thing you will ever do. A complete deviance from the popular narrative of most weight loss programs out there. We were just honest and upfront right from the beginning. They signed up. It was amazing. And they lost the weight. And they remembered, because every time they see me walking down the street, they sort of walk behind. They're embarrassed that it didn't stick. It's hard. We can't do it alone. That's the message. So I don't need a show of hands, but how many of you have ever been on a diet? Again, it's rhetorical. Here's what happens. You go on this diet and you go out to dinner with friends. And then the appetizers come out. And your friends notice, why aren't you eating any? These are amazing. They're so crunchy and crispy. You got to try one. And what's the first thing that goes through your head? I want that, but I can't have it. So eventually you build up the courage to say those words. I really want that, but I can't have it because my diet says I can't. Who's in control? The diet. The diet has been scripted for you. You're not thinking for yourself. You're just following the rules. But what if you said, I can have that, but I don't want it? Now who's in control? You are. And it's not just blind faith. It's because you've done your research. It's because you understand what are inflammatory foods. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Did I pass one? No. Okay. No, this is just part of the message. There's a reward for perseverance. And Scripture tells us that we should consider it pure joy when we encounter, what is it? Trials of many kinds. So, in the context of food, this could be chips, ice cream, pizza, crackers, right? Trials of many kinds. Of course, this means something more than that, but I'm just trying to make my point. It's not advancing. Oh, there we go. Did I pass it? Okay. The third strategy is focus. What does that mean? What does being focused look like? How many of you ever loved watching the Olympics? Anybody? One of my favorite events is to watch the divers and the gymnasts. Why? Because they stand there and they're focused and they see the movement in their mind before they execute it. That's one example. But it's more than that. In the context of what we're talking about today, I want to draw your attention to something else. In the story of Noah, God had decided to destroy all of mankind and all the animals because the world had become evil. And I'll just read it. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. How do you think he did that? If the state of the world was continually evil, what must Noah have been like to get God's attention? He was focused. He was a walking contradiction. He was the dissenting voice of his culture. And God used him to implement his plan. He had him build an ark, and he saved Noah and his family. So Noah had incredible focus on the mission that God had given him. And I'm sure to his expense, to his reputation, to his credibility, he risked it all. That's what it means to be focused in this context, is to risk ridicule from your coworkers, from maybe some distant family members, maybe even church members, who knows? Because you are committed to being the salt and the light. So it doesn't matter where the trials, where you encounter the trials. It doesn't matter where. Whatever you do it all to the glory of God. I use another analogy to help people understand that this is an attitude of permanence. How many of you remember the story of Hernan Cortés? He was the one who came and conquered Mexico. And so there's a story around his arrival with his ships to what is now Central America. And to motivate his men, he burned the ships to send the message that, hey, we're here for good, we're not going back. So that kind of mentality is the kind of mentality that we need to engage in our culture with this singular focus of treating our bodies as a temple, of being the salt and the light. Why? Because we are drowning in a sea of illness and disease and lies and deceptions. And God has called us to make a difference. And it could be at one meal. It could be over several weeks or months. We don't know. The last tip. Is you got to want it. It's not enough to believe this, because we all know this. You have to want it enough to do something. You have to want it enough to make a change. You got to want the challenge. You got to want the extra work. You got to want the hardship. You got to want the education and the knowledge that comes with you taking responsibility to figure out what it is that your particular challenge happens to be. You got to want courage, which requires that you pray and you ask the Lord to give you that courage. You got to want to be humbled, because this will humble you. Why? Because the minute you choose to follow the Lord and to be the salt and the light, guess what happens? You get a target on your back. right? The enemy comes looking for you in ways that you will be shocked. If I had more time, I could tell you stories, but I think more importantly is that God promises a reward. We got to want that. We got to want the reward. And with that, transformation. You got to want to put the old self to death and be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Let me give you another quick example so that you all understand how hard this is, how challenging it is. There's some books, articles that have been written about how the ancient warriors used to make the bows for their bow and arrows. They knew which tree to cut the branch from. Then they would carve the branch, right? And they would put pegs in the ground and then bend the branch into the shape, the desired shape for the bow. They would leave it in the ground, expose it to the elements for some time, and when it was ready, then they would string it, and it would be useful for war or for hunting. So what's my point? In the natural, that branch is useless to the warrior. It has to be cut off from the branch, from the tree. And that same principle applies to us. In the natural, in our sinful state, we are useless to the Lord. We have to be cut off from the cultural tree that looks normal, that looks natural, but we cannot be useful to the Lord unless we are born again. So I wanted to just kind of give you that analogy. All right. It's time to get into now some practical application of all this. You have some strategies, you have some truths. Now, what are we going to do with this? You all have your handouts? Okay. The handouts are coming. And by the way, I just want to encourage you that it's never too late to start. God can use you right where you are. There is someone in your life that you may not be aware of that is needing to see courage in you. And that's a seed that the Lord wants us to plant. Okay, so you're getting a handout, and we're going to go through some practical applications. We're going to put all this into some instructions. So I just need to ask, how many of you are ready to jump in? How many of you are ready to engage, to take the plunge, step into the arena? All right, so these are all practical tips that I want to go through. We've covered some of these already, but we're just going to go through these quickly. Being born again, renewing your mind, requires that you change your thinking. You got to. And hopefully I've given you enough material to spark that interest in you to begin to think about what is it that I need to change? So the first thing, as it relates to preparing holiday meals and going into the rest of the holidays, is that you have to see food as medicine. You probably heard it said that food either fights disease or creates it. Food either creates free radicals or it fights them. It either promotes healing or inhibits it. So food is medicine. And I'm not talking about apple pie or, Oreo cookies. I'm talking about that food. I'm talking about whole plant foods grown from the ground. And as you go about this, you want to remember that your body is not your own. So our body is on loan from God, and we are called to take care of it. You've been chosen. And it's a mystery oftentimes. I wasn't always a health coach. My dream for my career was to be an architect. And God called me away from that and put me on this path. And if you had asked me 15 years ago, what do you want to do for a second career? This would not have been on the list. It's not. I don't have letters after my name. But because of the near-death experience of my younger brother to cancer, I was on a mission to find out what causes cancer. Because I was living in fear because of everything that I'd heard about cancer. And 15 years later, this happened in 1995 when my brother was diagnosed. So probably 20 years later, I finally discovered the truth about cancer. And that's another subject. I don't want to head off on a tangent. We can talk afterwards. All right. Shop smart. This is a very key, very practical. You cannot trust everything that you read on the face of a package. It's propaganda. Remember the silly rabbit game we played? It's propaganda. You have to learn to read the food labels, the nutrition facts. You have to learn to know what are the names in the ingredients list. You have to seek those products, those packages that have minimal ingredients and that are ingredients that you actually recognize. So this means that you may have to go to more than one store. My wife goes to Trader Joe's, she goes to Costco, she goes to Clark's, she goes to Loma Linda Market. It's inconvenient. It is very inconvenient, and it's more expensive. And so this is what you have to get ready for. You want to buy fresh. So in addition to knowing what not to buy, you want to focus on what do I buy? Whole plant foods. And if you can go to a farmer's market, support the local business. Have conversations with them. Learn about gardening and planting. Buy organic. There's no other time, I should say, that is more important for us to focus on buying organic than today. And don't trust it necessarily. So you have to ask questions. You have to be the CEO of your own body. That means you got to be intentional. So you have to expect to adjust not only your budget, but your time and your attitude. Fix your kitchen. First thing you got to do, and I hope you do this when you get home, go through your pantry, go through your refrigerator, go through your freezer, take that junk food, that high glycemic, ill-nourishing, high-calorie food that is one of your favorites or your spouse's favorite, and throw it in the trash. when I was running the CHIP programs, this was one of the first assignments that I would give the participants. And then when they'd come back, we would discuss it. Well, how did it go? What did you throw away? And the number one prevailing attitude was, I'm wasting money. Right? And that's what it would feel like. Because you went and you bought it intentionally, put it in your grocery cart, paid for it, you brought it home, and now you're throwing it in the trash. That seems illogical. Unless you change your thinking. No, you're not throwing money away. You are buying insurance. You're preventing those ill-nourishing calories from getting into your body in the first place and preventing any kind of toxicity or inflammation. That's what you got to think about. It's hard the first time, but then it gets easier as you go on. Get some equipment to help you be more efficient in the kitchen. Probably the two best pieces of equipment that you can buy for your kitchen are a rice cooker and a crock pot, or maybe even a pressure cooker. And then buy whole foods, whole plant foods, and use those to cook your food. Don't buy white rice anymore because it's devoid of any kind of nutrition. So get brown rice. My favorite is short grain brown rice, organic. Why? It has kind of a nutty, chewy texture. It's very versatile. You can use it with stir fry. You can eat it for breakfast with almond milk and cinnamon and raisins. Very versatile. Short grain brown rice. Lundberg. 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 Put a sign on your refrigerator in the kitchen. Something that's going to help you to remember why you're doing this, why it's important. Maybe you get a picture of some tall ships on fire with a message, burn the ships. There's no going back. It's hard. It is really, really hard. And so you may need to find a buddy, a partner. Vernita has a wonderful support group. So if you need a support group, get with Vernita after the program. It's a wonderful service that she's offering. What else? Start building your portfolio. Start looking for recipes. You might need to modify them. Take some things off. We're going to try some samples here in a few minutes, okay? And so I can just tell you from experience that some of these recipes I borrowed from the internet and then I modified them. And they're improved from the original version. Test the recipes, especially if you're going to be having people over or if you're going somewhere where you've been asked to cook. Test the recipe before you share it with anyone. And here's the big one. Think about food that you're making, not propaganda. What do I mean by that? We have become accustomed to falling in love with the names, the lasagna, right? I think I put a list of holiday names on there. Somebody read a couple of those. Reindeer bites. What is that? What else? What are some other ones? Holly jolly deviled eggs. Okay. These bloggers do this on purpose. Why? Because we are conditioned to just not think for ourselves and we just want a quick fix. Oh, that sounds great. Right? So you get the recipe, you make it at home. Maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. But you got to change your thinking in that you're not creating a name, you're not cooking a name, you're cooking nutrition. So It doesn't have to follow the recipe exactly. If you modify it and you improve on it, the name doesn't matter anymore, because it's a we have been captured by corporate interests to the point that we're just not even aware. When you think of pizza or fries, right, your mouth starts to water, not because of the name, but because of the addictive nature of the food. So break free from that bondage of being attracted to a name that may or may not have any nourishing value to it. So you're prioritizing nutrition over calories. If you're eating meat, and I'm not here to judge anyone, but if you're eating meat, buy organic. Go to Idaho and meet a rancher, and buy a chunk of meat from him, because he grew the animal, he slaughtered it himself, there's no hormones, there's nothing in there, right, except grass. If that's what you want to do, then step outside of the popular narrative. Don't buy meat at Costco, don't buy meat at Restaurant Depot, believe me. If you go out to a restaurant, and I've seen the cartloads of meat that these other restaurant owners load onto their carts when I'm shopping at Restaurant Depot. Those meats are cheap for a reason. And you don't want that in your body. So if you're going to eat meat, grow the chickens yourself, right? But break away from the status quo. Oh, yeah. Yeah, study the literature. So, if you really want to get into this, study the literature. And I'll give you a quick tip. So you might want to write this down. There's a website called greenmedinfo.com. Green, 3 words, greenmedinfo.com. And what that website is a library of the thousands and thousands of clinical studies that have been done on plant compounds and plant foods that prove and show the nutritional value, the healing powers of the plant foods. You're never going to find them on social media or in the news, because it threatens the popular narrative. But they're out there, thousands of them. So greenmedinfo.com. Type in either a nutrient, whether calcium or potassium, or type in a medical condition, arthritis, hypertension, whatever it is, and it will give you a list of all of the studies that have been done on that particular topic. It's an invaluable resource. So yeah, don't get your information from Instagram or Facebook. Listen to your body. Why? Because a whole food plant-based diet functions as a natural detoxifier. And it takes time. It's not magic, but it follows God's law of health. So how does this work? Well, when the CHIP participants would go through the program, one of the things that they would begin to experience is that they would feel different. They would either have a foggy brain or they would think clearer. A foggy brain in the beginning, but thinking clear at the end. So what does that mean when you have a foggy brain? Well, it means that when you flood your body with nutrition, with dark green leafy vegetables, with colorful berries, with complex carbs, with healthy fats, the body goes to work to try and take the toxins that are stored in the fat cells and get them out. And in the process of getting those toxins out, They're going to go through your brain and other parts of your body, and you might have some mild side effects. Don't take medications to mask that. Drink water, continue, trust in the Lord, and listen to your body. Watch the color of your urine. Pay attention to your bowel movements. You will notice a difference. How do I know? Because on the few times when I've been polite at a family member's house and I've had the turkey, okay, or something with cheese on it, the next day I could smell it in the bathroom. It's dramatically different. So there's a clue. You have a built-in monitoring system in your body. You just have to make the connection. Either way, when you're eating something healthy, what is happening to them? Keep a log, keep a journal. Know the difference between true hunger and a craving, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. And this will be the last tip. Yes. I'm sorry? Whole food, plant-based. If you feel God is calling you to make changes, to be the salt and the light, take that step of faith, because you never know who God is going to send your way that will be the seed that will lead them to faith in Christ. You never know. When I was knee-deep in running the restaurant, it was probably one of the hardest things I ever did, especially during the pandemic. And I remember one particular day, I was having a bad day, and I did not want to go to work. I just didn't want to go to work. And I kept telling myself, I don't want to go. There's problems with the air conditioning or problems with something, right? Something broke down, and I had to go. And I was just in a bad mood because it had interrupted something else I was doing. I don't know if it was with my girls or with my wife. I don't know what it was, but it was just one of those things that I disliked. So I'm walking to the front door of the restaurant, and in front of the restaurant we had a tiny little space, downtown Redlands, and there was just enough room for 2 tables for 2. And in one of the tables, there was a lady and her mom, and they were regular customers. So I knew them. Very nice, the sweetest people. And so as I'm walking, I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to talk to them. I just don't want to talk to them. I'm in a bad mood, and I just don't want to talk to them. And what does she do? Sam, it's so nice to see you. So I'm fighting this urge to just say hi and continue walking. But something stopped me. Little voice, stop. So I stopped. And I'm just biting my tongue. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to vomit all my worries and concerns to this sweet customer lady, with her mom. And she's just, talking, how are you? And I'm okay, right? Lying through my teeth. I just wanted to get in and get to work. And the whole time this lady is talking to me, her mother is just sitting there looking at me. And right before we were finished with the conversation, the old lady took the opportunity. She reached out and she grabbed my hand. And she says, I just want to tell you that I'm going to pray for you. Changed my day. God is amazing. You never know when you're going to be an instrument for someone or someone is going to be there for you. But you have to get on this path. You have to get on this journey. Okay, time for samples. And at the same time for questions. As the samples are being passed out, I want to share one more tip with you. A powerful tool. Prayer, obviously, is the first one on the list because there's power in prayer. There's strength in the truth. But there's also, what does it say? Purpose in your words. The words that you speak are self-fulfilling. And I'm going to give you some words that you can begin using today that will have the potential, they have the potential of helping you see the world around you in a different way and your life and your relationship to food in a different way. So you all have pen and paper? Write these words down. Are they in the handout, by the way? Okay. So they're in the handout already at the bottom, at the very end. I feel hungry. Okay. Why is this significant? Why is this important? Because the English language is really just, what do we say when we're hungry? I'm hungry. Let's go eat. Right? The English language is not helpful at all. You can eat anything, right? But if you change those words to I feel hungry, then you have to think about, you have to acknowledge, am I really hungry? Because how many of you here have ever fasted? Anybody? So you know what it feels like to be truly hungry. But the majority of people in this country and the majority of people in the world have never gone more than 3 or 4 hours without something in their mouth. Day after day, month after month, year after year. And they don't have a clue what it means to be hungry. And what they do is they crave. They have a craving. And so, to be able to adopt this strategy in your life, I encourage you, go on a fast. 3-day, 5-day, research it. There's a lot of different versions out there, okay? If you're on medications, check with your doctor first, all right? I don't want to give you bad advice. But my point is this. Get to the point to where you know what it feels like to be truly hungry. Not just have a craving. You get to the point to where you can distinguish the difference. Because every time I drive past In-N-Out Burger, I get a craving. The next part of this, I need to nourish. Again, when we're hungry, we usually say, I'm hungry, let's eat. But again, that word eat is not helpful at all because we could eat anything. We could eat junk, we could eat healthy, we could eat anything. But if you change this vocabulary to your everyday and you say, I need to nourish, what does that mean? Well, it eliminates a good 90% of the choices out there because 90% of the food out there is not nourishing. Only whole plant foods nourish. So it forces you to make a better decision about what you're going to eat at every meal. Because every bite either supports healing or it inhibits it. It either creates free radicals or it fights them. And I'll just warn you a little bit. This is weird when you first start saying it, okay? It's weird. Because it's just not a saying, it's not a vocabulary. that people use. But it's amazing how subtle and yet powerful that word nourish is in this context. Because now it's very common in our home that when I'm hungry, and I know that I am, because I primarily live on sort of an intermittent fasting diet, maybe 2 meals a day and maybe a fruit at night. I know I go 4, 5, 6 hours or more so that I know that I'm hungry. And so I say I need to nourish. And that helps me it reminds me to go find those foods, those things in the refrigerator that I know are healing. Organic, whole plant foods. Any questions?
Something on inflammation. We're going to share something on foods that are inflammatory or
Inflammatory foods? Yes, I will. Before, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what you're eating. Could I see the list? All right, so you should have a plate with green beans, with lemon and brown garlic. You should have a sample of a vegan nut loaf, chickpea nut loaf with gravy, with vegan gravy, a sample of black bean quinoa, and a warm pear and spinach salad. And then for the sweet tooth, dried fruit nut bark. So what I want to point out is that you want to find the seasonings that are going to suit your taste. I personally like things that are hot and spicy, things with jalapeno, with habanero peppers. My grandparents were from Mexico, so hot salsa was just a staple, right? Well, it turns out that hot peppers have a lot of vitamin C, okay? So more so than citrus. Now, you can't eat it in the same quantity, so you want to be temperate, okay? But figure out the seasonings that are going to be agreeable to you. When it comes to salt, it's not safe anymore to buy sea salt. Why? Because our oceans are full of plastics. So microplastics are ending up in sea salt containers. So the only salt that is free from microplastics is Himalayan pink salt. Himalayan pink salt. Because it's carved out of the ground. It's what probably sedimentary salt from the flood, I imagine. When it comes to oils, now we're getting into the inflammatory issue. The only oils that are truly safe is extra virgin olive oil. And make sure that you buy from a reputable company, because extra virgin olive oil has been captured by corporate interests. So you have to find a reputable source. There happens to be a store downtown Redlands called Lot 22. The owner used to be the pastor at the Redlands Church. His name is Zach. I can't think of his last name. I forget his last name. I know his first name is Zach. but he was the pastor at the Redlands Church years ago. He and his wife now have an olive oil business. And so he's very knowledgeable. It's a little bit pricier, okay? But you want to make sure that you do your research when you buy the extra virgin olive oil. Just about every other oil out there is inferior quality to organic, cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil. That website, greenmedinfo.com, type in olive oil and see what comes up. Okay?
Lot 22.
Organic, cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil. LOT 22, lot 22.
I have a question about the chickpea vegan nut loaf. Can you make that without the nuts and it still's pretty good?
Sure. I'd recommend you put maybe some seeds, such as maybe sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds, something to give it a little bit of, dense texture. Okay? Yes.
When you were doing the engagement strategies, you said you had 5 things. I think you only gave us 4, unless I missed one. I have discern, endure, focus, and yearn.
There
What
were
was
only
it?
4.
Oh, it was 4. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was 5. Okay, thank you.
A question about the olive oil. It doesn't have a high heat point. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but see if
The smoke point.
high smoke point, like for stir frying, if someone wants to use a little bit for that, or adding to a jacket of a baked potato to make it crispy or something. What would you suggest?
So coconut oil has a higher smoke point. It's not quite as healthy as extra virgin olive oil. But again, one of those things you have to research the source of the coconut oil, okay? But that would be my recommendation. It changed the flavor a little bit, okay?
Hi, I believe you mentioned that in the calories section, you said something about it's virtually impossible to overeat calorically.
Yes,
So can you go into? I have many other questions if I can.
go ahead.
But can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So a bag of potato chips is probably 1,100 calories. You would have to consume probably between 8 to 10 potatoes to bring the caloric equivalent to 1,100. Now, if you bake the potato and you smother it with butter, well, then you just defeated the purpose, okay? But that's what I meant, is that when you buy a packaged food product, many of them have added sugar, and that raises the caloric value. Many of them have oils, that raises the caloric value, all right? So I use the potato chips because it kind of gives you a really stark comparison. You physically cannot consume 8 or 9 potatoes in one sitting. A bag of potato chips, they're gone in, 5 minutes? So that's my point.
And there was like a part.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Then I was just gonna add on to that. How would I if it's virtually over possible? Because I feel like for me and myself, I can eat. For me and myself, I don't necessarily full off of portion size. So how would I eat to the point where it is healthy, but I'm also satisfied and full, and I'm not craving what you mentioned later on.
So you want to eat a variety of foods. So you want to eat vegetables, tubers. You want to eat legumes and maybe fruit. So These are all good sources of complex carbs, and the vitamin and nutrient and mineral profile will vary. So the way to feel more satiated is to eat something like avocado to add to your meal, because it's a healthy fat, and so you will feel more satiated. The same thing with nuts. Okay, you want to eat a small amount of nuts. Like if you have a salad, so the pear spinach salad, you could put sunflower seeds, you can put pumpkin seeds, you can put walnuts. You could add raw nuts to just about anything, and you can increase the satiety of that because of the healthy fats.
Okay, thank you. And also, like, I think 2 more questions to not take any more time. I see that you mentioned dessert. So, like, is there, because I have a big sweet tooth, so, but, like, I could also eat, like, a lot of fruit. So, like, what is, like, one way you would balance that, like, a healthy dessert at meal? What is, like, a healthy dessert?
So a healthy dessert is something that has primarily a whole food in it. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you make short grain brown rice and you put raisins or dates in it with a little bit of almond milk or soy milk, and you have like a quasi rice pudding. Again, the names really aren't as important as the components, the ingredients of it. So good sources of sweet, a healthy sweet are, raisins, dried fruit, unsweetened dried fruit, dates. So if you have a sweet tooth, keep a stash of raisins or dates on hand, or dried mangoes, or some other dried fruit.
And then one of my last questions would be, like, is there any such thing as, like, healthy food replacements? Like, instead of a burger, if you can make, like, a homemade veggie burger at home, or would that kind of defeat the purpose of what you talked about today?
So that's a very good question. And my wife and I are constantly experimenting on how to make a burger patty. Quick and easy. So for those of you who are lacto-ovo-vegetarian and you do eat eggs, there are numerous vegetarian recipes online using quinoa and a few other things, maybe some walnuts and maybe egg whites or something to create the burger patty. What my wife and I have done is we start using mushrooms, the short grain brown rice, but really, really moist so that it helps to stick. And then other seasonings, spices, maybe some nuts. But I would stay away from anything that is prepackaged. Impossible Burger is probably worse than eating a turkey burger, okay, or a salmon burger. You just want to stay away from that. I don't know what kind of artificial stuff they put in there to make it look and taste like meat, but whatever it is, it's not natural, it's not healthy. Probably highly inflammatory. I don't know for sure because I haven't researched it, so I'm being a little overly melodramatic, but I'm just going with the rule of thumb. It's not a whole food, plant-based burger.
Okay, so it's not just burgers, but like, would it, like, I'm trying to like food replacements that are like healthy. So like, would it still be like okay?
Okay,
Like,
so a good food replacement for egg would be
I don't think it
tofu. Yeah, depending on how you want to use the egg, but flax meal. Mm-hmm. There's a website that you might find some of this. It's called Minimalist Baker. Minimalistbaker.com.
Minimalist.
We take a lot of the recipes there, we modify them to our taste, because some of the things aren't exactly the way we want or the way we like, but they focus on fewer ingredients to these recipes. Minimalist, Minimalist. Minimalist baker. Coconut milk. Look at the ingredients list. Make your own, is what I would say. If you want to drink coconut milk, make your own. I've yet to find, because we wanted it for the restaurant. We were making coconut milk from coconuts and water, and we were making almond milk from almonds and water. But it's a lengthy process. I'm researching vendors that actually sell just plain coconut milk and plain almond milk. And I have found one, but I'm still testing the recipes. But to make coconut milk, buy young coconuts, drain the coconut water out, scoop out the meat, and blend it. It takes time, all right? But anytime you buy an almond milk, a soy milk, a coconut milk in the grocery store, read the ingredients. If there's things in there that you cannot pronounce, that you don't know what they are, don't buy them, especially if they have added sugar. If you're going to buy something, make sure that you buy the almond milk and the coconut milk without added sugar. Question?
Yeah, what about that machine called Almond Cow? It helps you make almond milk. You can put your almonds in it. Have you heard of that
It's
before?
a machine called what?
Almond Cow.
I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, it's electric, and you just put your almonds in there, So maybe you can put your coconut in there.
That's pretty much what we were doing.
Yeah.
But it's probably a faster process. We were soaking the almonds for 4 to 8 hours, and then we would blend them, and then we would strain them. We'd add water, blend them, and strain them. It takes a long time.
And she wants to ask about avocado oil.
Yes, I did want to ask you about avocado oil. Do you not recommend that?
I don't have enough information to answer that.
Okay.
I need to study the process of how they extract the avocado oil from avocado. So unfortunately, I can't give you an answer on that. I don't know yet.
So is your only recommendation for oil then olive oil?
Olive oil or
That's
coconut
it?
oil.
But it has a very low heat.
So don't use any oil. Use lemon.
Well, we don't use much oil at all.
So use lemon. So if you want to saute something,
use lemon.
just use
Lemon juice?
Lemon juice, yeah. Just
Okay.
squeeze a lemon.
Okay.
So just so that you have something to kind of
Yeah.
saute.
Well,
or
we use
steam.
just water. We use
Yeah,
water.
or water. But yeah, keep in mind that don't be afraid of olive oil. We need healthy fats in our body, and if you're not getting them from the whole food, then the olive oil can provide some of that. So I don't know the answer. I need to find out. I need to research it. There's a company that I found that makes organic olive oil. They're out of Central California. The name of it is Bari, B-A-R-I. I don't know where they retail it. They may sell it wholesale to restaurants only, but look it up on the internet. Maybe you can buy it from their website. Bari oil, and they have a lot of different varieties and flavors and things. Bari, B-A-R-I, Bari. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share what I do because I am oil-free in my cooking. Maybe sometimes I'll do a little olive oil for salad dressings for guests for their taste. You can saute just with water as well. So.
And by the way, I just found Bari on Walmart
Great.
app. $10.48 for,
A liter?
well, it doesn't give the ounces here. It's a
Yeah.
long, narrow
Yeah.
bottle, though.
Yeah.
Walmart. 34 tablespoons servings, so 34 tablespoons,
Yeah.
whatever that adds up to, maybe a pint and a half.
Yeah, we use olive oil sparingly. Because we like the healthy fats, we make our dressing with olive oil and lemon, and then some seasonings. It's great. It's phenomenal. So you could add a little bit of apple cider vinegar. I use that also very sparingly. It gives it a little bit more of a tang to it that the lemon juice doesn't give. I know some of you might be a little sensitive to using vinegar, but again, it's one of those things. If you're buying a packaged product, you want to research the cleanest source. So, lot 22. In downtown Redlands, they have olive oil and they sell in glass bottles. Bari Oil also sells it in glass bottle. Okay. By the way, I do want to make one comment on working in the kitchen. Give yourself time and latitude to be able to be comfortable working in the kitchen. I know some of you probably don't like working in the kitchen, but it's imperative that you become accustomed to being in the kitchen, which is why you want to go through and buy some equipment that's going to help you to make your job more efficient. This also includes storage containers. We buy glass storage containers with a plastic lid, and they're the nesting type. And here's how I use the nesting containers. So when you cook, figure out the size of your recipe and figure out a container size that is going to hold that much food. And then as you serve yourself the food out of the large container, after you made it the first time, then immediately put it into the smaller container after you've served yourself. Why? Why is that important? To reduce the oxidation that occurs in the food. In other words, if you have rice, for example, brown rice, or beans or lentils, and you make a big pot or a full rice cooker quantity of rice, and you put it in a large container, storage container, as you pull it out, there's less and less food and more air. So after the third or fourth day, if you have this much food and this much air, that food is going to spoil faster. So by taking it out of the larger container and putting it into the smaller nesting container, the smaller size container, these nest, okay, they kind of get smaller and smaller. What you're doing is you're extending the shelf life by reducing the amount of air that's in the food. So you're going to save money. So this is just a tip and a strategy to help you psychologically manage this mission of making healthier food, making it last longer, making it more nutrient dense. I'm sorry? What was it? Can you hand her the mic?
Your food and you put it in a container and you want to put it away in the refrigerator. Do you wait? Or do you put it in there
When it's hot, you mean?
when it's hot?
Oh, yeah, I let it cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because some people say it's okay to put it in there when it's hot still or warm still.
probably, if you're using a glass container, it's probably okay. The reason why it's not okay when you're using a plastic container is that the rapid temperature drop is going to cause, plastic to, leach into the food. So,
Okay. Because I was visiting a relative and they throw the food away after a couple of hours because they say organisms and stuff get in it, so they don't like it to be. You get it? Okay.
if it's meat, maybe, but
No.
there's no issue with vegetables or
Vegetables.
legumes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Ceramic. Ceramic plates. Yeah, china. Mhm. It's like glass. It's like glass. How's everybody like the food? There you go.
Who's closing?
So if you need additional resources, I have a coaching brochure and a book, and there's a sign-up sheet if anybody wants a 1-hour consultation to evaluate risk factors. And also for those of you that are interested in the restaurant muffins, I have samples over there that you can take with you. And these are banana oat and cacao nib muffins. They're made with coconut oil and flaxseed. So you're free to take some of those as well. Okay? No, we closed it to move it to a better location, and we're still in that process. I don't know when that's going to be. I'm trusting in the Lord on that completely because it's a tough business venture to launch.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Benavides. Thank you so much for such a timely message, because anybody can get recipes anywhere, but you need the background information, and that is taking care of our bodies, eating for the glory of God. And so you really did an amazing job hitting all these very, very important things so that our bodies can truly be healthy and stay healthy or become healthy. Thank you very much. Let's end with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for your many blessings. Thank you, dear Father, for the opportunity we had to learn all these amazing truths about health and food and how to relate with it and understand the world we're living in as well. I pray that you can continue to bless the Benavides family, bless their endeavors as they try to teach and help people out there to really become healthier and make better choices. Bless everybody that's here. We ask these things and stay with us in the name of Jesus. Amen.